Welcome to another episode of Boom or Bust, your home for NFL Draft Talk. I'm your host, Terry, and today I'm doing round 2 revelations, starting with Quenton Nelson. So, I've started round 2, just finished the offense actually. So, as I said before, kind of through my timeline, round 2, I go through, watch the guys that I've seen, kind of solidify my opinion on them, watch anything new. It's not as long as the first process, but I just watch and then I kind of compare my notes and see that, you know, the level of their technique is the same and the things I saw was the same. And sometimes things definitely change. And then, of course, I add new guys that I didn't see previously. But so, like I said, some things change, and it's not usually a 180 opinion. As I said with the Combine, I watched the Combine. Some guys make you go back to the tape with their numbers for good or bad. And then sometimes you just watch the tape and you realize like, I see things a little differently. So, sometimes it's small, sometimes it's a little bit bigger. But anyway, my first revelation is one that is not a shock to most people. And then of course is also going to get people saying, duh, why was this a thing? And that's fine. I've went through it before, but I'll go through it again. And that's Quenton Nelson being my number 1 guard. Previously he was number 2. And so please continue to listen because some people will shut down right there. As I said in my interior lineman video, you could go back and watch my whole explanation, but I still had Quenton Nelson as a level 5 prospect, top first round type, but I also had Will Hernandez as a top 5 prospect too. Oh, I'm sorry, a level 5 prospect for a guard. And I like Hernandez a little bit more, like I said, very close in grade, but I thought Hernandez was a little more athletic laterally, and I thought that his hand placement was a little better. And so, kind of 2 factors going into this second round after watching both of them again. And it's definitely a flaw in my system that I have to, change next year. And I openly admit that is that I need to start noting how many games I watch because as I said before, I like to watch at least 3 games in order to write a report. This year, some stuff's going on with tape, so it's harder to get. So, I have to be flexible with that rule, but either way, I have to write how many games I watch because Hernandez only was able to see 1 game that was available at the time. And so all of those are kind of based on 1 game. And if you know me, I like consistency. I don't like to base things on 1 game. And so, watching it again and then watching a new game that he had, I felt his hand placement is still very strong. But I also think there's about 20% of the time where he can also get a little wide, which is the same knock that I gave Quenton Nelson, which is still true. 80% of the time Nelson works within the frame, but Nelson's a little more egregious with his hugging. He likes to hug and grab people and just kind of toss them. So he's a little worse than Hernandez, but I think they both have tendencies to get wide. And so I had to knock Hernandez down there. I still think Hernandez is more gifted laterally. I think Nelson is more gifted going forward. So some big guys can go forward, but they can't go backwards or side to side. And that's definitely Nelson. If you go into the next level, he can get up to the next level and he can definitely do some damage. But when you're talking about pulling, there's a lot of times at the perimeter where he isn't able to fully make that play. And so that factors in, but I still think the whole hand placement thing kind of brought them back to even. And then Nelson, just his pure power. I mean, they're both nasty guys. Don't get this twisted. I would take both of these guys in the first round. They're both absolutely vicious. Nelson is a little dirtier, which is fine. I'm a lineman guy. I like that. But his pure power, and I think Will Hernandez is powerful. I think he has pure power, but I think the natural power of Nelson is just a little bit higher, and that's going to make his ceiling a little bit higher too. And his arms are longer and whatnot. And I don't get too caught up in that stuff, but I just think the ceiling on Nelson is a little bit higher. Now, the disparity of Hernandez in the 20s and Nelson in the top 5, I don't go that far. But I will say that I think after round 2 of evaluations, I would put Nelson back as number 1. Now, I wasn't trying to be contrarian. I always stick by with my evaluations and what I see and what I saw from Hernandez. I liked a little more than the limitations I saw with Nelson the first time. And then this time around, I could openly admit, of course, like I said, for the reasons I did, I kind of put them back to even. And then looking at the peer traits that they got, Nelson probably has a higher ceiling, so I would put him over Hernandez. So again, not a shocking revelation for anybody else. And I'm sure I'll get some blowback for even having Nelson as number 2, but he's my number 1 now. By a thin margin. I love both of these guys, and I would be happy if the Bears got either one. And I think you should be happy if your team gets either one. So go to the comment section though. Let me know. I'm sure you can yell at me. Tell me Nelson is by far better than Hernandez. I don't believe it, but go to the comment section. Let me know what you think about these two guys. Any guys you've been changing your mind on. Start that conversation. Thumbs up, subscribe, share it around. And if you, wrong sign off. Just thank you for listening.